Okay, so here is the roadmap for our explainer today. We will start with the remote work trap, then move into rituals for daily transitions and using visual boundary signals. After that, we will look at the role of team culture and finally, protecting your personal time.
All right, Section 1, the remote work trap. Let's talk about losing those office lines.
You know, in a traditional office, boundaries were literally built right into your day. You physically left the house, you went to a building, and eventually you came back. Remote work completely erases those natural signals. I mean, the initial sales pitch sounded amazing, right? It promised freedom, no commute, and plenty of family time. But, well, the reality is that work just quietly slips into the evenings. Family time is constantly competing with notifications, and this leads to profound role conflict and emotional fatigue. This is felt most acutely by caregivers and parents who carry all this invisible labor right alongside their professional jobs. When the exact same table is your desk, your lunch spot, and a homework station, home just never fully feels like home anymore.
So this brings us to a really critical question. How do we actually set boundaries working from home without just relying on sheer willpower? Because, let's face it, most advice just tells you to be disciplined. But willpower is a finite resource. Since the spatial and time separation of the regular office is totally gone, a lot of people are technically off work, but mentally, they are still completely on call. We absolutely cannot rely on willpower to fix a structural problem. We need deliberate, structured solutions to stop work stress from spilling directly into family time.
And that structural need brings us right to Section 2, Rituals for Daily Transitions. It is time to reclaim the commute.
Since you don't have a physical commute to tell your brain to switch gears, you literally have to manufacture one. Creating specific daily transition rituals is exactly how you signal to your brain that the workday is over so you can secure your personal time. Just look at the sheer physical commitment of step 1 here. Putting your laptop in the trunk of your car on Friday night means you physically cannot touch it. You are forcing that boundary. Then, you follow that up with a family chore ritual on Saturday and a really strict rule of 0 screens before noon on Sunday. Research from our source material notes that people who implement the specific weekend shutdown ritual see a dramatic improvement in their sleep onset. For a lot of folks, it creates the very first real restorative weekend they've experienced in years.
Moving right along to Section 3, using visual boundary signals. We are talking about inventing office walls. If we don't have actual office walls to protect our focus, we have to invent new ways to signal our availability to the household. You could stick a giant red no entry sign right on your door for deep work. Or try a simple sticky note system. A green sticky note means your family has open access to come in. But a red sticky note, that means the door is locked and there are absolutely no exceptions. You can also add a strict do not disturb mode on Slack or your chat apps at 7 p.m. sharp. These are tangible, visual signals that secure your personal time, prevent the kids from bursting into your Zoom calls, and clearly communicate your availability to the entire household.
And you know what? Those visual cues are incredibly powerful. 95%. That is a massive number, but that's the actual compliance rate from kids after just 10 days of using that simple red and green sticky note system. Think about that. In less than 2 weeks, you can completely train your household to respect your visual signals. This buys you uninterrupted peace, which makes you a much better worker during the day and, honestly, a much more present parent in the evening.
All right, Section 4, the role of team culture. Let's look at organizational support.
Up until now, we have mostly talked about personal discipline, but that really only works if you have psychological safety. Enter the Chaksu climate. This is an environment where teams simply accept that not everyone is available the exact same way. It is all about respecting diverse working styles and cognitive diversity completely without judgment. In a Chaksu climate, differences in energy levels and personal priorities are seen as totally normal, not as some sort of lack of dedication. But remember, this whole thing only works when psychological safety exists. Without trust, flexibility is easily misread as unreliability. But with trust, it becomes a truly sustainable way to work.
To build that level of trust, teams really need inclusive remote practices. We are talking about things like scheduling meetings only during shared core hours, recording those meetings for folks who cannot attend live, defaulting to shared documents instead of mandatory calls, and truly respecting asynchronous communication. These practices do a whole lot more than just improve efficiency. They actively protect personal time and create fairness, allowing caregivers and neurodiverse employees to contribute fully without having to sacrifice their family responsibilities or their health needs.
And finally, we reach Section 5, protecting your personal time. Time to establish some hard stops.
Even if you have an incredibly supportive team, you still need to actively train others to respect your boundaries.
If you are experiencing tension at home about doing chores during work hours, you have got to try this exact script. Have one direct conversation and just say, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., I am an invisible employee who does not exist. 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., I am your spouse 100%. Weekends are recharge. This creates absolute clarity. It completely removes the assumption that just because you are home, you are automatically available to fold laundry or run errands.
So, what is the actual result of this? 14 days. When you use that script and really enforce it by working in separate rooms, marriage tension completely disappears after 14 days of consistency. It's like magic. Clarity completely removes frustration. When your spouse knows exactly when they are going to get your full, undivided attention, they simply stop seeking it during your working hours.
And we can actually apply that exact same boundary training to our colleagues using specific tech and policy tools. Try setting an out-of-office reply every single night from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. that simply says you'll respond the next morning. If your boss casually messages you late at night, this automated response holds the line for you. The source data actually shows that when you do this, your entire team adapts by week 3. Those after-hours pings completely vanish. Combined with right-to-disconnect guidelines and analytics that flag excessive after-hours communication, these tools act as early warning systems to prevent burnout across the entire organization.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Do you know how to set boundaries that protect both your work and your life? Because drawing the line is not about doing less. It is about doing work in a way that is sustainable, human, and fair. When you use the structural signals, the visual cues, and the direct communication we covered today, you do not disengage. You actually show up more fully, both at work and at home. And really, that is what makes remote work truly work. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope you leave today ready to architect your own remote boundaries.